Welcome to the Rock Shop Community Podcast. I am here with my guest, Mr. Former Mayor Don Hammond. Thank you very much for coming on, Mr. Hammond.
Dylan, thanks for having me. Be fun.
It's going to be fun, yeah. And I'd like to thank the Rock Shop for sponsoring this podcast, and I'd like to thank Jeff and Caroline for supporting this, and anybody who watches, thanks. So, without further ado, let's get into your life. So, where'd you grow up?
That's a dangerous thing, getting into my life. So I grew up in Nyack.
Great.
I was born at Nyack Hospital, where there's now a parking lot, the old hospital there, a long time ago.
Wow. Okay, great. And so you were born here. So your parents were here?
Yep. My parents were both teachers in the community.
Oh.
My mom taught at what is now Liberty Elementary School out in Valley Cottage.
Wow.
And my dad taught at Bosse's. He was, I think this is right, he was the first teacher hired by Bosse's, and he taught the electrical course.
Very cool.
So he was a trained electrician. He had his own business for a while, and then he started teaching there, and I think he had like a 25-year career teaching.
Wow, incredible.
Built the building out there in West Nyack. He was the one that did all the electrical work with the kids.
That's amazing.
Used his students to build it.
That's amazing.
And and my mom was a kindergarten teacher. She was known as the kindergarten teacher that wore sneakers, because it was back in the day when everybody was all dressed up and
right.
nines, and she wore sneakers.
Excellent.
So
excellent.
everyone knew her as the lady in the sneaker, sneaker lady.
Amazing. So you're Nyack through and through.
I'm born and raised. My wife and I spent about 5 years in the Philippines, living in the Philippines. We worked in a refugee camp in two separate times. One in it's a funny story. I think it's funny anyway. We left the United States the day that Ronald Reagan was inaugurated and the Iranian hostages were freed. We were in Seattle getting on a plane to go to Manila.
Well, that's a day to remember for sure. You're not going to forget that. Incredible. Great story so far. I love it. I think it's an amazing story. And before we get into that, which I'd love to get into that, do you have brothers and sisters around here?
Brother lives in Speculator, New York, up in the Adirondacks.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of like if you dropped a pin in the middle of the Adirondacks, that's Speculator.
Okay.
He's got a place up there. He runs a camp, a summer camp. Well, it's actually like a conference center because they do stuff all year round.
Oh.
And I have a sister who lives in Florida, West Palm Beach.
Oh.
And Jim, my brother, is 8 years younger than me, and he's got like a herd. He's got I think he has like 10 grandkids, and he had 4 kids and a bunch of grandkids. He's really, really a great guy. He's doing well. He went to high school here too. He grew up here, and then was in the Army for a while. But yeah, so we don't get to see each other that often. I see Jim. We have our family has Ron and I have a house up in Rome, New York, a little bit north of Utica, and so to get to Speculator from there is about a 45-minute drive. So I usually go see him when I'm up there. I'll spend an afternoon playing golf or fishing or doing whatever brothers do. Right on.
Yeah, my brother lives in Massachusetts, so I don't get to see him. That's where I'm from as well.
Okay.
That's it. That's amazing. So you guys all grew up here. What was your childhood like in Nyack? And if you could just touch upon like some of the older places that you would visit and what you guys would do, and just give us some history there.
Sure. Well, so my dad and his brother, my uncle, built a house for us in New City. Mm-hmm. So we lived in New City until I was in 3rd grade.
Okay.
And you mind me going through the history just so you catch up? So in
I want the whole thing.
3rd grade, we moved to Valley Cottage.
Okay.
My dad lost his business. We went bankrupt. He didn't go bankrupt actually, but he lost his business and had to start everything all over again. Mm-hmm. So we rented a house for a while. When I was in 8th grade, we moved to Nyack. Mm-hmm. So I was born in Nyack, spent the first 2 years of my life in Upper Nyack. Mm-hmm. Then we moved to New City, then to Valley Cottage, then to Nyack. Mm-hmm. And my family's living in the house that I grew up in.
Really?
Yeah. So it's the same house that my parents bought in, what would that be, 59? Or no, '61.
Wow. And how old is the house?
The house was built right after World War II.
Mm-hmm.
It was actually I live on Dickinson Avenue, which is right near the middle school.
Mm-hmm.
It's like one street north of the middle school.
Mm-hmm.
And those houses on that block, there's I think 4 of them, that were built basically from, they tore down Camp Shanks in Japan and brought the stuff over and built the houses out of that.
Oh, cool.
So, when I've done repairs on the house or we put on an addition onto the house, there's sometimes beams that have like notches out and stuff, because they were using old lumber and old timber. So so it was built in I think 48, maybe 49.
Super cool.
But yeah, it's not a big house. It's a great house. But, my kids grew up there. I grew up there. It's a great location. It's a
Right on.
beautiful place.
Right on. My banner just fell down. Hold on. I gotta be funny.
You gotta
Hold
put
on.
the banner up. You can't not have a banner.
Yeah. This is totally. Okay, I'm just gonna take it down so it doesn't happen again. Total pro.
Total pro. He did that with such pro action. Like nothing happened.
Oh man. Oh God. Well, anyway, that's really cool.
So I went to the middle school, which was like right behind my house.
Mm-hmm.
I went to Valley Cottage Elementary School, and then I went to the middle school, and then through the high school, the old high school,
Mm-hmm.
obviously. And I graduated from Nyack High School in 1969.
Wow.
I was just as I was walking in, a guy from across the street called out my name. He goes, "Donnie," and I looked up, and it's a guy that I went to high school with.
Amazing.
He's back here for Easter vacation with his family to visit his kids.
That's great. Such good, rich history here in Nyack. I live in Valley Cottage. My daughter goes to Valley Cottage Elementary.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get back into the village, but I don't have $8 million right now, but maybe I will someday. Anyway, great. So, okay, you went to Nyack High School. What was your experience like there? Were you on any teams, any curricular activities you did?
Yeah, I was a soccer player.
Okay.
Pretty much that was what I did. I became the student government president when I was a senior.
Shocker.
It actually was a shocker at the time. My best friend Bob Corvino and I were best friends all through high school, and we were in I think it was a chemistry lab, and he said to me, he goes, "I'm gonna run for GO president." That's what it's called.
Okay.
And he said, "Why don't you run against me?
Okay.
I'll bet you can't beat me."
Oh, that's fun.
So I said, "Okay." I had never been in student government before. I had never done anything like that, and so I ran.
Right.
And I won.
Nice, great.
I didn't think I was going to win. The funny thing is, the day of the election, Bob was he still is, an amazing athlete. He was all-state football, all-state baseball. So he was the catcher on the baseball team, and it was in the spring. So I was hanging out in front of the Nyack High School. The old Nyack High School had this amazing, place in front where everybody could just hang out.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a beautiful place. Mm-hmm. We played box ball, and not that anybody that's not from Nyack would know what that is, but
yeah, what's box ball?
What's box ball?
I have no idea.
Well, the concrete is cut out in boxes.
Okay.
Right. So each person has a box, and they would play with a tennis ball and try to get it into their box so they couldn't hit it back to you.
I see.
I mean, that's the basic rules. And it got pretty heated.
I bet.
Anyway, so I was there hanging out with a couple friends. We were playing box ball. We were fooling around because I was waiting for the results of the election so I could go congratulate Bob that he had won. And someone comes up to me and goes, "You won." And I said, "What?
Huh?
What?
Really?
I won?" So yeah, that's basically how I got started doing, I guess, stuff like being elected to things.
Right. Awesome. Very interesting. Okay, cool. So we got the basics of your life here in Nyack, New City, Valley Cottage. Did you go to college?
I did.
And where'd you go?
I went to Nyack College.
Nyack College?
Nyack College. I was a soccer player, so I went and played soccer there. My family is part of the Christian Missionary Alliance, which was what the Nyack College was.
Okay.
So my grandparents, both my mom and dad's parents, were missionaries.
Oh.
So my dad's parents were missionaries in Cambodia, and he was actually born in Phnom Penh.
Wow.
And my mom's parents were missionaries in Hong Kong, in China, and then in Hong Kong when they threw all Americans out of China in the 50s.
Wow. So a rich history of public service. It's in your blood.
And my uncle as well. There's a lot there of serving people. I was working. I was working for, when Ron and I first got married, I was working for an electrical wholesale operator over on 303. And my uncle was living in Hong Kong, and he came back, and Ron and I had just been married, maybe 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, "You guys should come to Asia." And I'm like, "Yeah, let's go.
Let's go to Asia.
Cool, let's go. I've never been there. I want to go. Let's go." And Ron was like, "Let's think about this." Good thing. It's a good thing I married her. She makes me think about things. But we ended up going about 6 months later. But it was, I would have never started in that career if my parents and grandparents hadn't been involved in Asia in their life. I would have never even thought about doing anything like that.
Right. I mean, I haven't.
Yeah, it was just honestly, it was a whim.
Right.
That sort of changed the whole direction of our life. It was almost, Ron and I both looked at each other when we landed in Manila, completely like jet lagged and didn't know what the hell we were doing. But,
yeah.
She looked at me and she goes, "I think we're in the right place."
Oh, that's amazing.
It was just like, as soon as we got off the plane, she said that, and I said, "Yeah, I think you're right."
Wow.
And we spent a year and a half there that time. And then we went back after my oldest daughter was born.
Amazing.
We spent a few years there. Her first 2 years of her life, maybe a little bit less, were in the Philippines. She was the only white baby in a refugee camp of 25,000 people.
That's incredible. So give me a little bit of a day-to-day life as a missionary. What are you doing there?
Well, we really weren't missionaries. We were working in a refugee camp. We were real relief workers.
Okay.
Our day-to-day was it was changed from day to day. It depended. Sometimes we would teach English to kids. Other times we would do cultural orientation. These were all refugees that were coming to the United States.
Mm-hmm.
The majority, like 95% of them, were coming to the United States.
Mm-hmm.
So we did, and I played soccer every afternoon with the kids out in the neighborhood every day.
Great.
I played every day, almost every day. And I started a soccer team, some with refugee guys, Vietnamese and Khmer, Cambodian, and Laotian were all in the camp at one time. So we would play Laos against Vietnam, and I was usually the Habib, the referee, and I would get them going and get them all organized and stuff. So it was just really spending time getting to know people.
Uh-huh.
And it was really kind of an amazing experience. Within, again, you'll go, "Oh, really?" Within about 6 months, I was running the operation for the organization I went for. Oh, really?
Great.
And it really was the start of a career. I spent 26 years traveling all over the world.
Wow.
Doing refugee and immigration work, relief work, disaster response. I've had an incredible run at doing stuff. It's just amazing.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Sometimes I think, what you did what?
Do you speak Tagalog or any Cambodian or Vietnamese? I don't know the names of those languages, but
So Vietnamese is Vietnamese. Cambodian is Khmer. And Tagalog is the Philippines. I tried to learn Tagalog, but my real desire, because my dad was born in Cambodia, was to learn Khmer.
Mm-hmm.
And the interesting story is that my grandfather translated the Bible into Cambodian, into Khmer. So he was very, the Hammond name in Cambodia is fairly well known.
Wow, that's fascinating.
Yeah, who would have thought
Yeah.
Mostly because of him and his work there. So I really wanted to learn the language. So when I would go up into the neighborhoods, I'd play with the Cambodian kids.
Wow.
Because they didn't speak English real well, and some of them did, but most of them didn't. but they were talking with each other. They were speaking Khmer.
Yeah.
So I learned how to curse.
Of course.
Because those were one of the first things. They thought it was really funny when a white guy said the words, right?
Of course.
That was really funny.
Of course it, yeah.
So, and I learned how to, all the things when you're playing soccer, back, trap, man behind you, things, you learn all of those things. Those were the first things I learned.
Wow.
And then I took trying to really learn the language, and I never got to the point, it's a Cyrillic alphabet. So I never got to the point of being able to read it or write it, but I was fairly, I can't now. I can understand it when someone talks to me, but I can't answer back.
But at the time you could get by.
Yeah.
Like conversationally.
Yeah, I actually had a chance to think about going to Cambodia to work. So that was I really wanted to learn, have a functional, be able to function in, at least on the street in Khmer. So yeah, it was quite an experience, and the things that we were able to do there. The second time we were there, we landed a State Department contract to teach kids basically what it was going to be like when they got here to be in school. So from 7 years old to 15 years old, I think it was somewhere in there. We designed from scratch. We were the first ones to do it. Designed a curriculum for how do you go to school in the United States? Because the parents had no idea.
Right.
Their kids hadn't been in school before.
Right. All the rules are different.
Yeah.
The whole style is different. You're in elementary school, middle school, high school. They need to know all this.
And you need to know when your child needs help, who to go to.
Right.
So all of that stuff was part of it. I don't know how much they absorbed, but we had like 200 staff, so it was a pretty big operation, and that was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. I had just gotten my MBA at the time, so I got to practice all the things that I had been learning in school.
Excellent.
So it was really very, very interesting process to build an organization from the ground up.
Right.
There was like 10 people on staff when I got there, and there was 200 and something when I left.
That's amazing. So you do 5 years there, but not consecutively. You do a year and a half.
81 and 82, and then we did 87, 88, and part of 89.
And you mentioned your daughter. Is that your only child?
No, two kids.
Oh, okay.
2 daughters. Abigail, who is an occupational therapist. She was the one that spent time in the Philippines. And then Katie is our younger daughter, and she's the mom of our grandson. So she's the mom of our grandson.
Wow.
And she works with Carl. Come on, at the Hudson Spectacles.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, she works right there. So she brings Ray, our grandson, to our house 4 days a week, and we chase around a little 2-year-old and then go to bed.
That sounds amazing.
At 8:30, get ready for the next morning.
My parents are in Massachusetts, so we don't get that as often. So thank you for doing that for her. As a guy who has 3 kids, and God bless my wife for doing the bulk of the work of the rearing of the children, and I'm here working, doing my thing, having fun, playing music, and talking to interesting guests and whatnot. She's doing the heavy lifting. So, Rebecca, if you watch this, I love you. Thank you so much.
She seems like a really great person too. So
she is. I'm so lucky, and she's what I would consider a unicorn. Just absolutely gorgeous and amazing, and never uses that gorgeousness against me. Because I'm weak, man. She could, but she never does. Okay, great. So you did the Philippines thing. That's amazing. What an interesting life you've had so far. This is all I know. I'm so fascinated, and I'm so happy we're doing this, because I would have never known any of this.
Yeah.
Is there a Wikipedia page on you that I could find? I should have researched, right?
I doubt there is.
Right.
You could probably Google and find out a bunch of stuff, because I've done after we came back to the United States, I ran part of an organization that was doing resettlement of refugees in the United States, and I was there's an organization that brings all of them together. There's 13 of them, or there were 13 of them, and as you'll be surprised, I was the head of that organization for a few years. So I had the opportunity to really do some amazing things. I mean, I got to testify before Congress about refugee admissions and about issues when Soviet and Russian Jews were coming out of the Soviet Union, and evangelical Christians were also coming out at the same time. We were involved in a lot of the not negotiations, but a lot of the discussions about how that would happen.
Right. I'm reminded to ask you, actually, so when you're in the Philippines, these refugees, they're coming from Cambodia and Laos, I'm assuming from the Vietnam War.
Yep, and Vietnam too, mostly Vietnamese.
And Vietnam, of course, so that's really important. And then now you're back here in it's from the Soviet Union collapse, or because of the communist oppression, or what?
No, there was it could, you know what, I don't know what the political situation was about the Soviet Union at the time, because I can't, my brain's not thinking about the dates, but there was a process for Russian Jewish people to get out of the former Soviet Union with a Dutch visa.
Okay.
So there was a very slow process, and it took a long time, and it was very difficult to get out. But then all of a sudden they opened up and let them just go.
Oh.
Just go. So now they had to work out a process, because there was thousands of them coming.
Right.
It wasn't like 10, 15, 100 a month, maybe none that month. It was all of a sudden the floodgates opened. So they opened up offices to do the processing in, I think it was Vienna and Rome. Rome was the big place. So they would go to Rome, they would get processed there, then they would come to the United States.
Mm-hmm.
The Jewish community was amazing. They did took great care of the Jewish people that were coming out of the Soviet Union.
Mm-hmm.
Just amazing organizations. HIAS, the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society, the New York Association for New Americans was another Jewish organization in the city, and they sponsored and resettled thousands of people.
Right.
Really did amazing work for them too, because they had lost their culture, so they were really building their Jewish culture back up as well.
Right.
As helping them get started in the United States.
Is that where you were mostly working out of, is New York City, or were you here?
I was the head of the national thing. So we had 25 offices around the country that were doing resettlement. Okay. And we weren't just resettling folks from the Soviet Union. We were resettling people from countries in Africa, Somalia, Sudan. Trying to think of some of the other places but also from the Middle East. We did Iraqis. A lot from Southeast Asia. Eastern Europe when that fell. So we were doing refugees from anybody that qualified as a refugee. We were working to have them resettled here in the United States. So any downtrodden and down on their luck group who's being oppressed or having some kind of natural disaster or anything like that. It wasn't a natural disaster. The refugees, international refugee law, which you don't really want to know, but just a quick outline of it is, you have to be able to prove that you are being persecuted because of who you are. Your religion, your ethnicity, whatever it is. You can't just be, I lost my job, so I'm going to apply for refugee status, or I can't get a good job, so I'm going to apply. You have to prove some sort of persecution, and you have to go through an interview process and stuff to verify that. Okay, thanks for clearing that up for everybody. So you're head of this organization. What's the name of this organization? World Relief. World Relief. And how many years did you work there? I worked there for 24 years. And what was your official title there? Oh gosh. I ended I'm the kind of person that moves from job to job fairly quickly, because I'm a change agent. So I go in, I see things, I fix them, and then I get bored. I want to go to the next one. So I moved throughout. I had different job titles like every 3 to 4 years. Wow, fascinating. So the last title that I had was senior vice president of the organization. Senior vice president. Before that, I was the vice president of U.S. programs. Before that, I don't know what I was. Right. It's just that was me. My whole career was that way. Just find the problems, get in there, fix them. Problems are fixed. Okay, maybe I should move on to help this department or help this group or whatever. I don't know that I was really that thoughtful about it. It was honestly, I really wasn't until later in my life, and I'll tell you a quick story so we don't drag this on. But I don't know that I knew that. It's just what happened.
But we got all the time in the world, Don.
But you know, that's sort of the way my life has been. I really didn't do a lot of planning for it. It just happened.
Same with me.
I went to the Philippines. I took a sabbatical from my job at the electrical distributor for 3 months, and I never went back.
Of course.
I played golf with the owner of it this morning.
That's amazing. That's great. That's great.
So, and that was like 40 years ago, 50 years ago.
Wow.
So,
dude,
40 years ago.
Cool.
So and that's the way those job changes were too. I went from, you know, it was, you know, us white males when we're in our 30s, we want to become something, right?
Sure.
So we're driving to be this and that and trying to move up the corporate ladder and stuff. And that's basically what I was doing.
Right.
And then I got to be 58, and I had left World Relief. When I got my doctorate, I realized that, I don't want to get too theological here, but I realized that my theology was way different than the evangelical theology about life. So I in situations and circumstances, I ended up leaving that World Relief. And I started working for the Episcopal Church in their relief and development organization. And again, I helped them start they were a department of the church and they wanted to become their own organization. So I helped this really, really gifted person take her vision of what she wanted and what the presiding bishop at the time wanted to see in the organization, and I helped them put that in place. So then I left and went and worked for a smaller organization that was taking sort of cross-cultural engagement trips to Nicaragua.
Okay.
Go down for 2 weeks, build a house, live in the community, eat food, you know, very, very enculturation process. So people could, and it was mostly for teenage kids and for church groups, for high schools. It was groups would go together, families would go together sometimes. It was really an enriching experience because Nicaragua is so different than the United States.
Yeah, it is.
You know, the whole social fabric, everything is so different. So you would go down there and learn a completely different way of life where you hadn't even known that anything could ever be different than what you had done.
Right.
So it was an amazing experience for everybody. But anyway, then I came back and I started working again for the Episcopal Church. 2008 happens. Market crash. I'm working for a foundation. The corpus of the foundation gets cut in half in like 4 days. So I went into the president of the organization. I said, his name's Donald. I said, Donald, there's no way that you can keep me.
Right.
So let's figure out a way. And he had actually come to my office earlier that day, and he told me that he was going to let me off. So it wasn't like, it was sort of, I mean, it was his decision, but so I had to start all over again.
Right.
It was Thanksgiving. 2008.
Yeah.
Thanksgiving. No, I mean, no one's hiring.
Right.
I'm 58 years old.
Right.
So the one thing that I asked him for, and he was very gracious, I asked him for a consultant to help me work through my next gig.
Okay.
So we did. It was, I don't know how much money it was, but I got a 6-month contract to work with this person to help me kind of figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up. So, and I still haven't figured it out.
Me neither. Me neither.
I don't plan on it.
Me neither.
So, so the one thing that she had me do was to go through all of the jobs that I ever had and write down what were the things I liked about it, what were the things I didn't like about it, and then what did I like and not like about the person that I worked for.
Okay.
So I did that with all my jobs, and I realized I had worked a heck of a lot of jobs, so it took me a while to get her through this. But as we talked about it, she said, you realize that you've only stayed in one job for like 3 to 5 years at the most.
Okay.
And you've moved on.
Yeah.
And I said, no, I didn't realize that, but you're right. As I look at it, I did.
Wow.
And so she said, why? Let's look at why. And that was when I discovered that that's what I like to do. And I like to go into situations that are a little bit dysfunctional, need some help. Maybe you're working okay, but if they did this, they would be better. And just use that ability to bring people together around a vision, to cast a vision, and then get people to follow it. And then once they're doing that, I'm like, okay.
Great. Now what do I do? That's great. I'm very similar to you. I'm always like on to the next great adventure.
Yeah.
And it's very, I never set out to be a musician. It just happened. Happened. And then I never set out to be a business owner in Nyack, New York. Here I am.
Well, we're glad you did.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, we're
Thanks.
glad you did.
Thanks.
That's been my career.
Wow.
And the way I started in Nyack politics, I mean, you might not know this about me either, but I was on the school board for 7 years.
Okay.
So I started getting involved in the school district when my daughter was was in kindergarten.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got involved in the PTA and some other thing called site-based management, which seemed to fit my skill set pretty well. I was traveling all the time, so this allowed me to do things remotely and stuff. So I did the site-based management thing for Valley Cottage Elementary School. And I got to know the superintendent of schools through this process because I wanted to learn. I like to dig in to find out what really is happening, not just what people tell me is happening.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got to know him fairly well, and he goes to me, you should run for the school board. I said, nah, I don't want to run for the school board. I'm traveling all over the world,
Mm-hmm.
I don't have time to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So I helped 2 other people that were running for the school board, and they both lost.
Mm-hmm.
And the people that won, I honestly almost like, what?
You're like, really?
How did that happen?
They won?
They won. And I mean, it wasn't that they were bad people. It was just it just was really surprising. The talent of the 2 people that ran against them was really kind of superior. They were way better than I was. So, And so I was sitting on my couch, and I pulled up the paper, reading the journal news, and I read this. And I looked over at Rama and I said, I can't believe they lost. I'm going to run next time. And she goes,
Oh, no. She knows the next chapter's coming. She knows.
So I did, and we ran against 2 incumbents, Michael, Mark, and I. Michael's still on the board. And I ran together against 2 incumbents. Nice people, but I think we were, from what people tell me, we were the first people to ever unseat 2 incumbents together like that.
Very cool.
So I spent 6 years on the school board. Of course, got in and saw that I
Did what you
this
do.
a little bit. And I ended up doing that. I was the president for a couple of years. Worked on restructuring the school district and how they managed themselves and stuff. And they took some of my advice and some they didn't, and it worked great. And I had decided 2 terms, done.
Yeah.
So after the 3-year terms, after my 3rd year of my 2nd term, I said, that's it, I'm not running again.
Okay.
And I went into the sunset, thinking I was going into the sunset. And I didn't do any school district stuff for a while. They called me in once in a while to help with things, but then a school board member resigned.
Okay.
And they asked me to come back for a year until the election, because he resigned with the year still to go. So I said, well, you need to have some sort of interview process. You gotta decide who you want. Don't just cherry pick people, because there may be other people that are better than me. So
Right.
go out and do the interview process. If I get the interview process done, then cool, I'll do it. So I did, and they chose me. And I spent a year, that 7th year, that was my 7th year. And when I was done with that, I was working for the United Way in Poughkeepsie. Dutchess and Orange County just merged their United Ways. I was the first president of that. So you can imagine the change management that happened at that.
Right.
So I'm traveling, I'm driving up there because Rana's mom unfortunately had Alzheimer's before she passed. So Rana was caring for her mom, and we couldn't move.
Right.
I mean, we weren't moving. So I was driving 65 miles one way to work.
Yikes.
And yeah, it was a long haul. And Jen White was the mayor at the time.
Right.
And she calls me up and says, I'd like to have coffee with you.
Sure.
Yeah, why not? I didn't know her. I didn't know who she was. I had to go into the restaurant and ask, is Jen White here? Because I really didn't know who she was.
Right.
I was traveling all over the place. told Elijah Reichlin Melnick one time, he said, Don, you were so good at this. And I said, yeah, you know, when I started, I didn't even know where Main Street and Broadway were. But she said, it was with Doug Foster and Jen and I met at Runcible Spoon. We were sitting outside, and she goes, one of the trustees is not going to run this year, and you need to run.
Of course.
Said, well,
why me?
Yeah, why do I need to run?
Yeah.
She goes, well, I've done my research, and you're the one that needs to run for this position.
Okay.
So I said no, and I went home and Rana, and I told Rana the story, and she goes, you're going to do it. This 30 years of marriage, she sort of knows me.
Yeah.
So I went back to Jen and I said, listen, Jen, the reason why I said no was not because I don't want to serve the community.
Mm-hmm.
It's because I'm driving an hour and a half every day to work and back from work.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to have a lot of time to do anything.
Right.
You know, if you just want me to sit on a board, there may be other people that can actually do something.
Right.
So she said, no, I don't need you to do anything. I need you to be able to, in that hour and a half back and forth, I need to be able to call you and ask you questions and get your ideas about stuff. Great,
we can do that.
I can do that.
Yeah.
And I can go to meetings twice a month. And I ended up doing stuff too, but because that's just, I'm so stupid. But that was, so I said yes, and I ran with Louise Parker, who's one of the most amazing people that I've ever worked with. What a heart for the community Louise has. She's an amazing person. I don't know how well you know her, but
I don't yet.
She's an amazing person. I mean, I think half of Nyack is a relative of Louise's, but other than that, she's really an amazing person. She's been so helpful to me throughout my whole time on the board. And we won the first time, and we won the second time. And then the third time, Jen had said to me, Don, you need to run for mayor. So what I need to say, I also told her, Rana said to me when I told her that I was going to run, she said, okay, you can run, but you can never run for mayor.
She knows you, bro.
So I said, no, I don't want to be mayor. No, I won't run for mayor, don't worry. So, and the rest is history.
Right.
But that whole process of, I lost an election to a primary election. The last year that Jen was mayor, I wasn't on the board.
Okay.
So, but everybody said to me after I lost the election, it's pretty devastating to lose an election. I have to tell you, anybody that loses an election that puts themselves out there and really works hard, it's not an easy thing. So, I lost the election. I was kind of devastated. I was running Meals on Wheels in Rockland County. I was the president of Meals on Wheels in Rockland County. So I really dug in there really hard. And Jen said to me, and also very good friends, Heidi Broking and Steve Knowlton, said, you need to run for mayor.
Mm.
You know, you lost by like 10, 15 votes.
Mm-hmm.
You need to run for mayor.
Okay.
So I agreed, as long as it was okay with Rana.
Yeah, what did Rana say?
So I didn't ask her. I said to Jen White, I said, Jen, I can't run for mayor. She goes, why? And I said, because I promised Rana I wouldn't. She goes, I'll handle that. I don't know what she said. I know, Rana is she would never stop me from doing something like that if it was something that I wanted to do.
Right.
So I don't mean to make it look like she was going to stop me. But she and Jen had a conversation, and Rana said, just as long as as no one knows who I am.
Okay.
I don't want to be the mayor's wife.
Fair. That's fair.
Yep. Absolutely fair.
Yeah.
I don't want to be walking down the street and someone say to me, your husband needs to do this and needs to do that.
Right.
She goes, I don't want to do that.
Let's talk about that, actually, in that position, in that role as a very public figure. I'm a public figure in my own right. I walk down the street, everybody knows me. I love it. I think it's great, but I am responsible for teaching people music. I am not responsible for cleaning up the streets or all the various problems that I'm sure you're blue in the face talking about, because parking this, homeless people this, and these are very serious issues. I'm not trying to make light of them. I'm just saying it's got to be pretty severe to have people be yelling at you and.
Dylan, I would have to say that most of the yelling happens on social media.
Right.
I've had a couple people yell at me in public, but not that many. Most people in Nyack want to have a debate about stuff and figure out what's the right thing to do.
Great.
I found that about Nyack, just even when I was on the school board and we were going through really controversial things, and people were dug in their heels on certain issues. When it came time for us to make a decision and we made it, even the people, there's always people that are gonna fight you and not be for you. It's almost like a bell curve on every decision major decision you make.
Right.
And they have a right to do that. That's their right.
Yeah, America.
Yeah, they should be telling me that I'm an idiot because I didn't make the decision they wanted me to make.
Fair.
And so that's okay, and they have a right and responsibility almost to keep their movement part of the process.
You know, checks and balances. It's great to have that. Yeah.
You make better decisions when you listen to people, and you're not going into something already deciding that you know, but you're going into a decision thinking that you have information that's going to help you make the decision, and then trying to figure out what you don't have. What information don't you have,
right? And
who has it?
Who has it, and how can you get it?
And then how do you get it to help you make a better decision?
Sure.
And that's what I always tried to do. Believe me, that I was not perfect and never would think that I was. But that was one of the things that I always tried to use in any decision that I made, was to do research outside of the community or in the community from people that weren't at the meeting talking to us. Go find out what somebody that lives, you know, in the plaza thinks about the parking.
Sure.
Go find out what people in Rockland Gardens think about the parking. Don't just listen necessarily. Listen, but don't just listen to people that come to the meetings or are on social media telling you what should or shouldn't happen.
Sure.
Because there's other parts of the community that you have to take into consideration.
Now, when it comes to the social media stuff, did you engage in any of it? You just watched it and said, ugh.
No, I didn't say ugh. I actually tried. There were
That's
times,
what I say.
No, there were actually times when people were just, when they were just venting.
Sure.
I would, cool, vent.
Right.
I'm not going to engage with you.
Sure.
This is not going to be a productive engagement, so
No.
I'm not going to engage. But if somebody was asking a question, I would usually take it to the messenger and not do it on the
public forum. Right.
I would do it, I'd be happy to meet with you. Here's the issues that, from my perspective, if you would like to add to them, please do. Here's when I'm available, or if you want to do it just over message. And that was the way I engaged it. If I saw somebody had a question that I could answer or give some information about why things were the way they were, that's what I did. And sometimes I would do it on public forum, but usually that doesn't work, because then they come right back at you with stuff, and it just goes downhill.
Sure does.
At least that's the way I found it to go. So I always listened, even the people that were venting. You gotta read and see, okay, what is it that they're venting about, because that might be an important piece that we're missing, or an important piece that we need to think about to make a decision. And it doesn't mean you're going to make it for them. You might still make it against them, but you still have to listen to everything that comes at you. Right.
You got to take as much information as you can, whether it's what you agree with it or you don't. Formulate a decision and hope it's the best one. And then, so as far as like these public forums that are on all over social media, these people just, I don't know what they do with their lives, because it seems like there's just an absolute ton of anti-this, anti-that, without any actual movement or in any direction or any work that they would put in themselves, just the complaining. I don't know where they get the time. So besides the social media aspect of it, like, how does it work when you're saying, like, you're in like a boardroom setting and everyone's just trying to make these decisions about, let's use parking as the example, because it's probably the hottest button issue, or second maybe now. Like, how are these decisions made, and do you really have the final say on any of them, or are they a collective?
Well, the mayor doesn't have the final say. There's 5 people on the board.
Okay.
So you have to have 3 votes for anything.
Okay. You're on the board too.
Right. So the mayor, and then there's 4 trustees.
Okay.
So the mayor basically sets the agenda, and then runs the meetings.
Okay.
So I mean, that's basically what the mayor does, and
Great.
gets yelled at on the street.
Yeah.
Now, that really doesn't happen that often. It
Yeah.
really doesn't. I have maybe in my 6 years as being mayor, I may have had 4 interactions that were difficult, that I had to literally walk away from.
Right, and that's what you have to do sometimes. You just have to walk away.
Yeah,
When
it
you're
wasn't going anywhere.
No.
And it's not a good look for us to be yelling at each other on the street. So.
right, and they weren't listening to you,
And I probably wasn't listening to them towards the end. So, let's be fair.
Fair, yeah. I mean, those things happen. Okay, so then walk me through the process here.
Well, if we're making decisions about parking, so there used to be, I'll try not to get into the weeds here, but there used to be, and there still is, something called the parking authority.
Mm-hmm.
So the parking authority was disbanded by Jen
Mm-hmm.
White when she was mayor, and was taken under the control of the village board.
Okay.
So now they meet. I was pretty good. I said they rather than we, because I've been trying to get rid of the we stuff because I'm not doing that anymore.
Nice.
But they meet once a quarter as the parking authority.
Uh-huh.
They get information from the public,
Uh-huh.
information from other parking authorities, information from the judge and the judicial process,
Mm-hmm.
from the lawyer and from the staff
Mm-hmm.
about things, how are things going, or do we have the right system here, is it right? So all of those things will be discussed. There'll be an agenda set up. They'll probably review, again, I would imagine during the budget time, they'll review fees.
Mm-hmm.
They'll look at, how's the budget doing for the parking authority, because that's a revenue for.
Sure.
It helps keep people's taxes down.
Right. A lot of people don't know that.
Yeah, well, it does. It helps keep. It's part of the general fund.
Mm-hmm.
So the parking authority has its own separate entity, and then we draw down money out of the parking authority. We have to.
Oh, look.
They draw down out of the parking authority to put into the general fund to help operate the organization. There's been some discussion about maybe that should be targeted at certain things, but those things change from time to time, so it doesn't make a lot of sense to target them.
Mm-hmm.
And you can also sometimes get money from the state for things that you had targeted, and then what do you do?
Right.
So it's better to put it in the general fund and then make the decision about what are the important issues that the village needs to work on this
Mm-hmm.
year. So the issues come up. For some reason, we were struggling for a while with a lag time between when someone put their license plate in on a parking meter and it registered on the guy's handheld.
Right.
And they were giving tickets to people that actually had paid.
Right.
So that was obviously something that we needed to fix.
Big problem.
Yeah, what?
Yeah.
So I think we have it down now to maybe it's 15 seconds or something.
Okay.
Like that. So it doesn't happen very often, and if it does happen, we also worked on an administrative process with the village justice to what are the things that will automatically write off.
Okay.
Obviously, if somebody puts in their license plate is KNZ when it should be KZN,
Mm-hmm.
they're going to get a ticket because they're looking for that license plate and it doesn't show up.
Right.
They're going to get a ticket. But one letter, really?
Yeah.
So they'll put it into an administrative pile, and usually they'll write them off.
Oh, great. That's great.
So I discovered this. So I was teaching at Long Island University. I do a lot of adjunct at college, a lot of adjunct stuff. I was teaching in their MBA program, a marketing course. And I was over in White Plains, and I parked in the White Plains parking structure there.
Mm-hmm.
And I come out, I had to take it.
Of course.
I paid.
Yeah.
I got the wrong number.
Ah.
You go over to the thing, the way they have it, you go over and you enter in the
Space number. Yeah.
And then you pay for that space.
User error.
So, the funny thing is, Nyack has always had this parking process where if you disagree that why you got a ticket, there was somebody in Village Hall that you could go and talk to.
Sure.
Usually it ended up yelling at, sorry.
Sure.
And you couldn't do that in White Plains.
Right.
There was no phone number.
Right.
There was no email address.
Right.
There was this is your court date, or
Pay.
you pay.
Yeah.
So it was like a $10 ticket,
Mm-hmm.
and it's going to cost me that much to go over to White Plains.
Right.
So I just wrote him a letter. I just said, bad on me. Here's what happened. Sorry. Here's the check. He sent it back to me.
Oh, great.
And they said, first time, my words, first time on you, first time on us, second time on you.
Yeah. Right.
So I
Fool
came
me
back,
once.
I came back and I said, this is wonderful. You're building up rapport with your community by saying to them, oh, we all make mistakes.
Sure. That's
and
great.
We're not trying to do something to you. We're trying to manage a parking system.
Sure.
So you're right. You're one letter off on your license plate, or the lag time was not right. So there was a bunch of things, and I think they're actually on the website,
right.
the Parking Authority website. What are the issues that you can go and get an administrative judgment on? You don't have to go to court. The judge looks at them and decides. They call you and tell you.
Great.
So, I mean, that's one of the issues that we worked on at the Parking Authority. The
Mm-hmm.
other was the issue. We had zones that were very close, 6770 and 6775.
Yeah.
And people would park in the wrong zone and get a ticket for it.
Right.
So, well, that's dumb. Let's change it and make it so different. The zone's different.
Yeah.
And so we did.
Right.
Now, I have to tell you that there are other places in not very far from here that have far more zones than us.
Right.
And they give people tickets for parking in the wrong zone.
Of course they do. Yeah. Yeah.
But we don't.
Right.
We changed it, and it's the right thing to do.
Right.
I mean, it is the right thing to do.
And one thing that I think is very important to mention, and is that the money that goes that the community gets from the parking tickets goes back to the community.
Yes.
So, yes, it sucks when you get a parking ticket. Yes, it sucks when you come from somewhere and you don't know how to use their system. It might make you not want to visit again. I get all that. But if you get a ticket, you pay the ticket, it goes into the community that we live within. It then is used for things like Parks and Rec. I don't think people understand that.
Yeah.
And it needs to be said.
Yeah, people don't understand it because it becomes the anxiety of getting a ticket, so they come from it from that perspective. But I've honestly, Dylan, I've had a couple conversations with people from outside of Nyack who got a ticket and just were like, my phone was on fire from the voicemail, just, whoa.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have to hold that up to my ear. I can hold it down here. And so I would always call them back from 90% of the time. Sometimes if they were cursing and just going crazy, I wouldn't call them back.
Yeah. Smart.
Sometimes you just I can't do that.
You don't need that in your life.
But I would call them back and talk them through exactly what happened and explain things to them, and then say, this is what you should do. And I've gotten letters from people thanking me and saying no mayor in any place else would ever do that.
That's great.
And I know Joe Rand does the same thing.
I bet he does.
I know he does.
He engages on social media. And I think he's doing great with that because you can hear tone on social media, but it can often be misconstrued. But his tone, I think, is very good with that.
He's very good. He's going to be, when he's done, people are going to know that he was a great mayor. He's going to really do a good job.
So speaking of that, you did 6 years here, and I've known you for 4 of them, I think, or I don't know, it doesn't matter. What matters is what do you think you contributed to the Nyack community as your favorite thing that you did while you were mayor?
Yeah, a lot of people have asked me that question, and I don't know that I have one.
Okay, great.
One of the things that, I don't know if I'm known as this or not, but I was a mayor during COVID.
Right. Scary.
Yeah, I was the mayor during COVID. So it was one of the things that, Joe is an amazing communicator and does it way better than I did, but I did a fairly good job of bringing the communications process up from where it was to where it was when I left, well, from when I came to when I left. We also restructured the organization, surprise, surprise, and saved taxpayer money. We did sort of consolidated some things. We got the budget in line. We got the parking authority budget in line. It was a mess for a while, but we got that all straightened out. So it really is the things that I did are the things that I always did.
Sure.
I've always done.
You just found the problems, did your best to fix them, put the right people in the right positions to help fix them.
The one thing that I think I'm the proudest of is I'm very convinced, and I'll go back and tell you sort of life history why, but I'm convinced that as Nyack we need to live better as a community,
Mm-hmm.
and we champion and talk a lot about diversity, but we don't necessarily live it.
Mm.
There still is a very separate African American and white community.
Agreed.
And one of the things that I worked really hard at was to make sure that that voice was part of our decision-making process.
Great.
So when we had a board opening, I would always go to the community and say, who can serve on this board?
Mm-hmm.
When we had an issue that we need to discuss, I had people that I would go and discuss issues with, ask what's the community thinking about this?
Mm-hmm.
I went to African American churches before COVID pretty much 3 times a month, so that they would see me and be able to say, that's our mayor. And if they had an issue, they knew who to talk to. It wasn't somebody, whoever it was, sitting in an office. It was the guy that sat with us in our church for 2 hours.
Great idea. I bet
So-
that did a lot for them and a lot for you and a lot for the community.
I learned a lot, I learned a lot. I learned a lot about myself, a lot about unconscious biases that we hold.
Yeah.
Because after I became, I wouldn't say known, but at least recognized, people would share with me things that they never would share with me probably before.
Mm-hmm.
So I got a lot of that feedback about how a decision or something that someone said or something that I said, what it meant to them.
And how it would affect them.
Yeah, how
personally.
they interpreted it rather
Sure.
than the way I thought I was saying it.
Right. It's just an unconscious bias that you've learned from, however many years on this earth.
Yeah, so that was, I think, for me, that's the most important thing that I did for myself and for the community, was to allow for that voice to be heard.
I'm always trying to figure out how to get them through these doors. We do music lessons here. Those people who are, living government assisted, right? Music is for everyone, but if I'm living on government assistance, I'm not thinking about music lessons. That's too much money. It's too much money out of their pockets. And I want to do like a charity gala where we do like music is for everyone. And I would want to partner with Jeffrey Friedberg.
I was going to say go with Jeff.
Yeah, I want to partner with Ryan Townsend from RCT Music Group, all the music stores in Nyack and music groups and anybody who wants to participate. My general goal would be to raise money that goes into a big pile, like an escrow, and anybody who wants music lessons can just go and use that and go get music lessons. And I don't know how to do that. I don't really know what kind of laws you can do that. And I certainly don't want to have to ask people, prove me what your income is to be able to access this money. But I do want it, and I want it not so just it can benefit me, but so it can benefit Jeffrey and it can benefit, I just wonder we'll figure it out.
Well, some of the best musicians in Nyack are from the African American community.
Yeah.
Frankie D.
Sure.
There was
Sam Wayman.
There was some of the names are slipping my mind now, but there were jazz singers, women jazz singers who were just like, you hear them singing, you're like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But they're all from Nyack. They're Nyack people.
Yeah.
They're Nyack people, and you know where they usually exercise their talents? Churches.
Right. Of course. That we call it church chops. That's what we call it. When somebody just knows, they just grew up with music all around there.
But the pastor of Pilgrim Baptist, Carl Washington, his whole family are amazing musicians.
Mm-hmm.
His wife, his sons,
Mm-hmm.
his daughter. They're amazing musicians. They have beautiful voices. They all play an instrument, but they're probably all self-taught.
Right. If there's a will, there's a way. All it really takes is practice. That's all it takes. Anybody can do it. You just have to practice. If I can do it, anyone can do it. Okay.
But I would suggest that might be a place to to talk about how to get that done. Because go and talk to Paul Jones at the church on Main Street there, and Carl at Pilgrim Baptist, and there's a new pastor at St. Philip's has the same pastor. It's a woman whose name slips my mind, but that's a Louise Parker's church. St. John's Deliverance has a new pastor, but they and if you go walk by Pilgrim Baptist on a Sunday morning about 11:30.
Okay.
And listen to the music.
Yeah, it'll be awesome, I bet.
Yeah, you don't have to go in. You can hear it outside.
Cool.
So, but just very, very talented people who just love music, and it's part of their ethos. It's, you would talk their talk.
Right.
They're an amazing people too. You would learn so much from them, and they would learn from you.
Great.
But I would say that would be a place to start. All the names you mentioned, Jeff is incredible in what he does with people. But
yes, he is.
The churches and some of those folks are just
a good place to start. Yeah, I want to do it. I want to do it like a big winter kind of thing where we all get together and dress up and raise money for that. I just don't know how to really do that.
You probably need to start, maybe Jeffrey already has it, but you probably need to start like a foundation.
Or not-for-profit of some kind.
Yeah, you could work through the Rockland Community Foundation.
Sure. Become
a nonprofit and have the money go there, and you would have access to it. You
Great.
Would need, you'd have 3 or 4 people would be on your board.
Yeah.
Rand has done that, and I've done that, so
it's doable.
Yeah, it's very doable.
Great. So I'm going to work with Joe. We'll figure that out. Okay, so
good. I'm glad you're not going to work with me to figure it out. I'm retired.
Great. So yeah, let's talk more about you. So you grew up here. You went to school here. You got into the not-for-profit world, and kind of like consulting, I almost feel like, is your career, because you just go into a place, you see the problems, you fix the problems, you move on. Love it. You get to be the mayor of Nyack after all years and years as a professional, but moving throughout various jobs and positions as a professional, but always in the service of human beings, always kind of through churches, not always, but...
No, not probably when I was with World Relief, yes, and after that, not so much.
Great.
But
okay.
Yeah, with World Relief, it was definitely church-based. They call them faith-based ministries, but through that it definitely was. But after World Relief, it was really more secular. United Way, Meals on Wheels,
right?
Stuff like that.
And then so now you land as the mayor of Nyack, as you said. Joe took over. You said what you're most proud of. What's in the future for you, and what's in the future for Nyack?
The future for me, I'm still trying my best to get programs for the kids in our community that just don't have anything to do.
Sure.
We don't have a community center. So right now I'm working with Daquan Kerr from his mom is a friend of mine, and he played football when I was the football coach at Nyack along with his brother, and he's running something called Nyack Hoops. And he's right now starting to work with the school district to run a intramural program for kids 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. So I'm trying to raise money to get them t-shirts so that they can play in a league together.
Cool.
For the summer and stuff. So watch for a GoFundMe, or if you don't want to do GoFundMe, just send me $100 and I'll give you a t-shirt. And we'll say Nyack Hoops on the front, and we'll have your name on the back with all the other people that gave money.
Very cool.
We need to raise $1,000. Anybody who wants to do it, call me 914-954-7556 on my cell, and we'll do that.
He gave his number.
I'm a fundraiser.
Wow.
We do need to raise $1,000 for that, and that's one thing that I'm still working on. We'll continue to work on. There's a youth football program also that I've been working with, although I haven't been as successful with them. And they would be the first ones to tell you that I haven't. And the other thing that I'm working on, Dylan, is affordable housing.
Okay.
So affordable not in the context of subsidized necessarily, but affordable in the context of where people need housing. So one of the things that we've seen in Nyack, and this I think is something that Nyack was working on when I was mayor, and I know Joe continues to work on it, is providing housing for people that are sort of our working class folks. The rents in Nyack have gone through the roof. I mean,
astronomical.
Oh, it is just crazy. And those people that are waiting the table at the Casa del Sol or Hudson House are the ones that are getting pushed out of their housing because they can't afford the ramping up of the stuff.
It's wild.
And so that's something that is really, really important to me, is to make sure that we're providing a diversity of affordable housing. I do think we need to maintain and maybe grow some our subsidized housing, but the sweet spot right now is the one that's just above subsidized and below, I can make this.
Yeah, and it's crazy. I mean, as a musician, a working musician, a person who employs 15 different working musicians, they're the restaurant people you're talking about too. We're gig workers. That's who we are. And I've seen a lot of my friends just be like, I don't know how to do this. They all, like, most of them have roommates and stuff like that. And these people are 30s and 40s, and they're still living that way, and nothing wrong with that. It's just, that's what they have to do to be able to exist. And none of them live in Nyack anymore.
Right.
They all lived in Nyack pre-pandemic.
Yep.
Now all of them live spread out across the county. Somebody even lives in Trenton, New Jersey now, but still comes here.
Yeah.
Because it's that tough.
Yeah. So that's sort of my passion right now. I'm on two boards. I got myself involved in two boards. One is I'm on the Housing Authority board, which is all subsidized housing in Nyack. It's the Waldron Terrace and the Depew Manor. I was appointed to that board in January. And I'm also on the Rockland Housing Action Coalition's board, which is a nonprofit that works mostly on subsidized housing throughout the county. The county just had Pattern for Progress, which is a think tank, sorry.
You're good.
A think tank that does regional stuff, and they just did a report on housing in Rockland County. And afterwards, I looked at the person that was sitting next to me that I've worked with on housing stuff, and I said, they didn't need to pay for that report. We could have told them that. But now they have all the statistics and all the data behind it, so it's really an important report. But we are losing the very character of our communities. Right? When you lose a whole level of housing for people. Yeah.
We lost all the musicians, I'll tell you that.
We're losing the very character of who we are. And we've got to figure out a way to rebuild that.
Yeah.
And it's not, there's a law being considered in Albany right now called the eviction thing. But basically gives more rights to residents.
The tenants.
So the developers are against it because what they're saying is that there's going to be rent control.
Right. That's essentially what it is, right?
Yeah. But the developers should be saying these communities are losing their character.
Right.
We need to figure out a way to make this work for us,
right, financially,
but to provide housing for people. Because what happens if you no longer have workers for your restaurants?
Right, they go under. They go under. Yes,
so we've got to figure out a way to make it both a philosophical, an economic, and a moral issue, and just bring that all together and say, this is really important. This is not just about the developers aren't going to make as much money, or the people are going to have to travel a half hour to their jobs when they used to just walk to them. This is really about who we are.
The fabric.
It's the fabric of our community that's getting ripped apart because we don't have the very essential right of housing is not available for people.
Yeah, it's really rough. It's really rough. I personally have an experience with that with my musician friends and myself included, and I'm in Valley Cottage. I want to be back in Nyack, but can't afford anything in Nyack, and it's not just rent, it's housing in general. Yep. But I do think the future is bright. And the reason I think the future is bright is because I witnessed through this business and being here every day, I witnessed many, many, many young families moving here.
Absolutely.
Now, those young families have young children. So those young children aren't doing much in the community yet. Maybe they're going to a couple of Baby and Me music classes and stuff like that or whatever at the library, and then go into the schools. But there's going to come a time when they come of age, and then the community will continue to foster that. So I think we just have to find a way to adapt to the economy that's now essentially a young family, while simultaneously not losing our character and finding who is it that can work at a restaurant, or how can a restaurant pay somebody more, or how can we get some of those new constructions that have all those apartments to not start their rent at $3,500 for a 1-bedroom? How do you do that? I have no idea how you do that.
Yeah, and how do you buy a building, a multifamily building, and the rents are $1,800, and within a year you raise them to $32?
Yeah, how do you do that?
How do you do that?
I don't know. I know the people that live here in this very building, they have low rent. I know that. So the owner of this place didn't do that, which is pretty sweet.
There's some amazing, really, really amazing landlords in Nyack that have done some really creative things to help people. And I tried once to bring landlords, tenants, government, businesses together to talk about this issue, because it's multifaceted, right? It's not a simple one thing solution.
Sure isn't.
Because what you're paying for rent here in this building for what you do is either the right amount, too much, or not enough. Right?
Yeah.
So, but how do you make that decision?
Right.
And so when someone wants to open up a restaurant and the rent is, how in the world am I going to make that work?
Right.
So is there a way, and I know people say, well, cut the taxes.
Right.
Well, the village doesn't really take a lot of money on taxes. There might be something that could be done, although we don't have the power to do it as a village. But as in a broader context, there might be a way to change the equalization rate between commercial property and residential property. There might be a way to do that. Mm-hmm. But then you're hitting the residents.
Right.
Right. So you got to figure out a way to make this all work for everybody.
Right.
So
very complex issue.
Don't just do me a favor. Don't get fat rich. Make a living, make a good living.
Yeah.
I don't want to hold that back from you.
Yeah.
But don't get fat rich.
Got you.
Give something back. If you can get $5,000 for a year, or you can get $4,000 for 5 years.
Yeah. Let's go with that.
Let's go with the $4,000 for 5 years, because then it establishes a business.
Right.
You don't have to worry about the person going out of business because they're paying, and I know $1,000 isn't going to make a difference, but it's probably.
It could.
Yeah.
It could.
But let's think about this in a way that we can regulate it together.
Sure.
So that we're actually really creating community and what we want to be as a community. We're not being driven to it. We're creating it together. I
love it. I'm all about community, as you know, and you're learning. And I've been doing a lot of stuff with volunteering and whatnot. And I want this community to thrive, and I love it. And I didn't even know it was here. But with that, Mr. Don Hammond, we could talk all day about the crises of Nyack. I am interested in talking about that for sure, but what I really wanted to do was get to the core of who you are and learn about you, and I'm pretty sure we achieved that. And so I want to thank you so much for coming on the Rock Shop Community Podcast, exactly what we're talking about. Yep. And I really appreciate your time and learning about your life, and you're truly an amazing guy. Thank you.
Well, I don't know how true that is, but thank you for having me. And you and Jeff and I talked about, and Caroline talked about doing something like this a while back when I told you I'm going to start using my deep voice for things. We're going to do a podcast. So yeah, but thank you so much for having me on. And this has always been my community. It's always been, when I was the student government president, we were the first school in Rockland County to have a Black History Month.
Very cool.
And that happened in 1969.
Wow.
So this has been something that Nyack has been known for, and that we need to celebrate and continue to push for.
Sure.
And not allow ourselves to sit on our laurels of, oh, well, we've done a great job.
Sure.
Let's keep going.
Let's keep going. All right. Thanks everybody for watching. You can find therockshopnyack.com. You can find all sorts of other stuff I do there, as well as podcasting and performing and business owning and family guying. There's a lot I do. So check it out. And thank you again. Peace out, everybody. Peace out. Yes, that was awesome. Thank you so much for doing this. Really appreciate you.
Yeah, my pleasure, honestly, my pleasure.
A lot of fun, right?
Yeah, I've